if you're anything like me, you tend to overthink things. That is one of the biggest problems I have always had is I just overthink things. And part of it is because my brain kind of functions to where I don't just look at a thing and see that thing. I look at that thing and like a situation, for instance, I don't look at a situation and see the situation. I look at the situation and see 15 outcomes. That's always how that's how my brain has always worked. I am the type of person that I love puzzles. I love riddles, something that requires you to use the full power of your brain in order to come up with. I don't know if you guys remember in the newspaper, they used to have those little crypto quotes where it was this square box and had all these letters in there. And you had to figure out what letter corresponded to the correct letter in the alphabet in order to solve the puzzle. Well, when I want to say 13, I can't remember how old I was, but I solved one of those. And because I solved it and I solved it by myself, that really like opened up my whole I love puzzles type thing. Matter of fact, my favorite fictional character in the world was Sherlock Holmes because my brain works the way they portrayed that character's brain to work. And it's not necessarily a problem per se. I know I called it a problem earlier, but Yahuwah creates us in the way that he wants us to function in his kingdom. It's just we have to come to him so that he can show us how to use the gifts that he's given us for his glory. And that's actually what I'm going to talk to you about today. All right, let's get into it. Tell you guys before, but I can tell you now because it's over. But for the Babylonian month of April, I was on a sort of a consecration. I wasn't allowed to really get on YouTube unless I was just posting, something to my channel, but I wasn't allowed to watch YouTube. I really didn't watch the news like that anyway, but basically the only time I was able to get on any type of electronics, I couldn't use electronics for entertainment purposes. Let's put it that way. So no YouTube watching, because that's really the only thing that I watch on television is van life videos and stuff like that. So, but, and my entire time was spent either fellowshipping with my mishpachah or spending time with Yahuwah and his word and so on and so forth. And it was amazing. It was very amazing, actually. And he spoke so much and so much louder. It's amazing how much more we'll be able to hear him if we drown out all the other things in our life, or if we turn away from all the other things in our life. And it was so amazing. But there was one revelation that he gave me that just kind of like, I don't know, I've been in awe of him for quite some time now. I'll just tell you what happened. So I asked him, I prayed, and I said, allow me to see people the way you see them. Because one of the things that Yahusha said to his disciples was, I will make you fishers of men. More specifically to Kepha and Andrew, and I can't remember the other two that were fishermen, but to the four that were fishermen, I will make you fishers of men. And I know in the last episode, I talked about the fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and those who win souls are wise. Because we have to remember that we're actually out here telling people about Yahusha and the Basura of Yahusha, okay? So we're not just out here living righteously for no reason. Like, there is a purpose for the gifts and talents that Yahuwah has given to us to train us on how to live in his kingdom, how to manifest his kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven, and to draw people into his kingdom that are still out in Babylon, those that actually desire to know him but haven't been introduced to him. So one of the things that he reminded me of, back when I was in Christianity, I lived in this apartment complex in Southwest Atlanta, and in the apartment complex, they actually had a daycare, and I worked at the daycare as kind of like a floater. I wasn't officially a teacher, but I was getting my certification back then. But one of the things that I did, because I lived in the apartment complex, I opened up the daycare for the director, and I would be there when all the parents were dropping their children off. And all the kids got dropped off into the same room. And then once the teachers got there, they would collect their children and they would go into their respective classrooms. Well, one morning, the 1 to 2 year old teacher was running late, or she wasn't there. For whatever reason, I was the teacher that was in the room that day. And mind you, at the time, I didn't have children, and I didn't really want children because I didn't have the patience for children back then. It's amazing how when you have your own child, that quickly changes. But yeah, I was single, and I was happy to be single and childless at the time. But I found myself in this classroom, and there was this little girl there named Raven. Cute little girl. But the teachers kept telling me that Raven was bad. That's what I kept hearing about her. She's bad. She's bad. She's bad. So I don't remember if I prayed about it or not, but I do remember one day, Ruach HaKodesh, he told me to pay attention to Raven. And I noticed that when Raven had something to do, she wasn't up running around and causing mischief. And that's when it dawned on me. She's not bad. She's bored. She needs something to do. And not only that, but she was super intelligent. So she really could have been in a classroom with older kids and probably would have had a different behavior. So I paid attention to Raven, noticed that she wasn't bad, she was bored, and she was super intelligent. So one of the things that I was really big on was having the kids wash their hands. That was one of the things when I first started working at the daycare. Washing their hands was not a priority to those teachers, as well as when they would wash the linens that the kids would sleep on for nap time and whatnot. They would just wash it, but I would add like a cap full of bleach in, and I noticed that the amount of kids getting sick started to decline. So I had them up washing their hands for everything. You know, you eat, before you eat, you wash your hands. After you eat, you wash your hands. Go to the bathroom, wash your hands. Go outside, come back in, wash your hands. Like everything they did, I had them wash their hands. So I started having Raven help me. And on this particular day, when I was filling in for the teacher that wasn't there, the absentee teacher, the director came in to check on me to make sure everything was okay. And midway through one of her sentences, she stops and she goes, "Where's Raven?" And mind you, the little girl was standing right next to me. Very calm, very quiet, very unusual for what they were used to seeing from her. And I looked down beside me and I said, "She's right here." And the director looked at me like you would have thought that I had just solved the age-old question of the meaning of life. Like you would have thought that I had just figured it all out and laid it out to her, the look that she had on her face. And then she just said, "How did you do that?" And I remember my only response to her was, "I paid attention." And then she looked at me like she wanted to hit me, but that's okay. So fast forward to last month. And when I prayed that prayer, you know, Yahuwah, allow me to see people the way you see them. He reminded me of that time with Raven. And he said, everybody is looking for something. Everybody needs something spiritually. So pay attention, because whether we know it or not, people are actually telling us what they need without them knowing that they're telling us what they need. So he said, pay attention. And another thing that he said on top of that was, he said, you guys are all little children. Because to him, we're all little children. Now, we're not all his little children. We have to go through his son to be considered his children. But he said, you're all little children. And rightly so, because yeah, we consider ourselves adults once we hit a certain age, but realistically, we're just big kids. Like, I always make this joke at work about how I feel like we should petition the White House for siestas, because when we were kids in daycare and in grade school, we had nap time, and part of the nap time was because we were so rambunctious. The teachers needed the time to break and whatnot. I'm like, shoot, why don't we have nap time as adults at work? I'm just saying. They do it in other countries and people aren't as ornery. I'm just saying. I feel like siestas should be put on the, the docket for the for the House of Representatives to go ahead and address. They need to talk about these siestas, you guys. But no, seriously, we are all just big kids. And Yahuwah even says, come to him as a little child, because that's how he sees us. So when he gave me that revelation, and coupled with the reminder of what happened with Raven and how her behavior drastically changed because I paid attention enough to give her what she needed. And he was like, that's how you proceed forward. That's how you minister to people. And it's for any and every one of us to do. And it's funny because when you do that, you actually begin to have compassion for people. Because we should have compassion for people. Now, here's the thing. We're not supposed to be out here tolerating sin and all this other stuff. Like, we still stand 10 toes down on Yahuwah's word and his morals, his kingdom, basically. We stand 10 toes down. But look at Yahusha. He was out there in the midst of all of this ratchetness. He never became ratchet, but he had compassion on those that were doing the ratchetness. You know what I'm saying? Like, we are supposed to be becoming Hamashiach. We're supposed to be becoming the word of Yahuwah, who is Hamashiach. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I just wanted to share that. I know it's not a very long episode, but I just wanted to share that with you guys because, a lot of times, a great majority of the people that I've met in the truth, I don't know about you guys, but a great majority of the people that I've met in the truth have come out of Christianity. And whether it's Christianity or not, it was some type of religious background. Most of us. And with religion teaches you to be, I want to make sure I use words that are appropriate for any of the platforms that I host this on. So, religions conform you. They're kind of cultish. That's basically what they're cultish. If you're not part of my religion, if you don't see things the way I see things, then you don't exist. You can't be in my bubble, so on and so forth. Like, I know for me, even in prayer, even in Christianity, a lot of times when I would listen to different prayers that people would have when we would have our different groups and everything, they would be aimed towards destroying people and exposing people and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, whatever happened to, asking Yahuwah to, show them him, praying for people's hearts to be turned towards him, whatever happened to those prayers? Why are we always trying to destroy people? Because the thing about it is, at some point in time, we all used to be those people. And I don't know about you, but I'm very grateful that the people that he put in my life was praying for me and not against me. Like, at some point in time, we have to switch our mentality. Our mentality has to switch over. Let me correct myself. We don't have to switch that mentality. We have to submit ourselves to Yahuwah so that he can switch that mentality. But I'm going to tell you guys about what happened. Like, when I asked him that light bulb just went off. There's also one more thing I want to add to what happened during that consecration. And like I said, I'm only talking about it now because I'm no longer on it. And I have to testify about Yahuwah. So please understand, I don't want any glory for myself. This is all part of what I feel like we all should be doing in our relationship with him. So it shouldn't be anything like, oh, she consecrated and she got all these. No, please don't look at me like that, because I don't need no smoke from Yahuwah. Give him the glory. Don't give me nothing. Okay. Don't give me nothing. But anyway, another thing that happened to me. So I own a cleaning business. That's one of the businesses that I have. Very small, but hallelujah, I'm okay with it because I understand the reason for him giving it to me. But one of the clients that I have, or actually right now it's my only client, because when the pandemic hit, everybody was surprisingly like, I don't want you to clean my house. But I get it. You know, they didn't want the cooties. It's all good. Whatever. And especially because if I'm going into multiple people's houses cleaning, there's a possibility that I could have spread whatever. I wasn't living in fear, but I got it. I understand. Yahuwah had other things for me to do anyway. But I said all that to say, the only client that I have right now, now that the business is back open again, is actually a Christian church. It is the church that my father used to be an associate pastor of. And it's actually a church that majority of my mother's side of the family attended. You know, my grandmother, my aunts, my uncles, my mom herself when she was younger, so on and so forth. But I know the pastor's wife. She actually is the one that helped me get my job that I currently work. Well, I got the job at the same hotel, but in a different city through her, to put it that way. And, you know, me and her keep in touch because, you know, we're supposed to be the light in the world. We can't be the light in the world if we're sitting in our house all day saying, oh my God, look at all the heathens out there. So she asked me, you know, we made a deal. I cleaned the church and so on and so forth. But I'm not going to lie to you. It was actually Yahuwah that told me to go to her about this. And at first I was like, why am I cleaning the church? Isn't this the altar of Baal? I'm letting you guys know that this was my mentality coming into this thing. But since then, he has shown me different things. So he's even changed my mentality towards a lot of things by having me do this. But anyway, I rambled on to say all of that stuff just to get to this point. So one day I went in and started turning all the lights on and unlocking all the doors as per usual. And mind you, this is a small church. This is not one of those big, mega churches. This is literally like a small family church in a small country town. Okay. So I said all that to say you can literally stand in one point of the church and see almost everything in the church. So, so when you go in to turn the alarm off, there's always, when you get to the part where you have to make that left, you can also make a right and go into the sanctuary. And my eyes always get drawn in that direction before I make that left. And the doors leading into the sanctuary are always open, and you can see straight to the pulpit, and directly behind the pulpit is the choir stand. And then directly behind that is the baptismal pool that has this big wooden cross sitting in it. And during this time, it actually had a white linen cloth draped over the cross. So I'm going about my way, and I hear Ruach HaKodesh say, "You're not alone." I'm like, okay, it's going to be one of them days. So I was already expecting something to happen. I'm just letting y'all know. Okay. So I always save the sanctuary for last because the only thing I do in there is I vacuum, and there is a dehumidifier because, again, it's an old church, so it gets very humid in there. And if you don't put up something like a dehumidifier, it'll get very moldy and it's just not pretty. So the dehumidifier that's actually up there in the pulpit section or area, I was taught that I'm supposed to empty it into the baptismal pool. So I had cleaned the whole rest of the church and nothing had happened. But now I'm emptying the dehumidifier. And as I'm approaching it, the baptismal pool with this big wooden cross with a white linen draped across it, the hairs all over my body start to stand up. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is where it is. This is where you're hiding. And so I'm up there. And the whole time I'm up there, I just kept feeling like something was going to something was going to grab me. And I'm like, why? It was creep factor 1,000. Okay. it was creep factor 1,000. So I dumped the water, put the thing back, and I made up in my mind. I said, I'm good. I'm not even finna do this. I don't feel like dealing with this today. I'm finna leave. And Ruach HaKodesh said, but this is why I have you here. And I'm like, fine. So I turned around, and of course I started praying, telling it to leave, all this other stuff. Now, mind you, this is just a brief side note, kinda. Since I've been back, I haven't felt that there. And prior to that day, I hadn't felt that there either. But since that day, Ruach HaKodesh was showing me the significance of where that entity was. Mind you, I never saw anything, but I'm not going to get into full detail on it, but there are clear things that we can't see. I may or may not have described them on another episode, but maybe one day, if y'all willing, I'll be able to tell you about the different entities that he has allowed me to see, the different demons that he's allowed me to see. But there are some that are clear, okay? You can't see them unless they move, and then it looks like a clear silhouette, kind of like how the Predator looked in the movie The Predator when he would turn invisible. But anyway, settle that to say, this thing was up there hiding behind the cross. How spiritually profound is that? Like it was attached to that cross, hiding behind the cross. And just the way Yahuwah reveals things to you, it's like, that thing was up there hiding behind the cross. And that's exactly what it's been doing, ultimately hiding behind the cross, a demonic entity hiding behind the cross. And I'm just, with that revelation about us being little children, and then with that thing at the church, I promise you, Yahuwah, we just have to be still and listen. And one of the things that I said to him after that day, while I was on this consecration, I said, you know what? I'm not going to fight you anymore. Because realistically, in some form or fashion, we're all kind of fighting him. He wants us to do something. I'm not going to do that. Or we really don't want to, but we do it begrudgingly, and maybe that doesn't apply to you, but I'm going to be 100% honest, because I'm human. I'm not perfect. So I'm going to be honest and tell you that sometimes I'm like, I don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? But that day I literally said to him, I'm not going to fight you anymore. I surrender. I surrender to your will, to your way. I'm not going to fight you anymore. When I tell you, I felt like I moved out of the way. Something else was there. I said, mind you, I said, Abba, I said, Father, I said, Yahuwah. I specified who I wasn't fighting anymore, so nothing else thought that it could just come up in there and wreak havoc. But I want y'all to understand, like, I made sure I was addressing Yahuwah when I said that. Anyway, I felt, it was like I felt his presence. I don't even know how to describe it, you guys. I have a loss for words, but I felt something change within me. Something changed. Something moved. Something moved, and something else moved in its place, came in its place. And I'm very careful to say Ruach HaKodesh, because, like, I really don't know what happened. It's hard to explain what happened. But then ever since that day, I see everything so differently. I mean, I think it would be safe to say that it was Ruach HaKodesh, but again, I'm not 100% sure. I just know that I'm not the same since that day. And so I know this episode is probably a little bit different from most of the episodes that I do, because it's really just about a bunch of revelations, but it's what's needed right now, because time is winding up. None of us know the day or the hour, but it's getting close. I may or may not have said it on I know I haven't said it on the podcast episode, but Yahuwah gave me a vision also during the consecration one day where I was driving in my car, and all of a sudden I could see myself in this doorway, and I was just on the inside of the door, and all of a sudden the door slammed shut behind me, and I heard him say that the remnant will barely make it in. He also told me, well, before he said that that was the door to the wedding feast, and then he said the remnant will barely make it in. Now, I shared this on one of the Shabbat meetings that I was with, but there was one part that I left off because, you guys, I still get nervous when Yahuwah tells me to say stuff, and I'm just like, okay. So I completely forgot to say this because I was like jittery. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't forget it on purpose, but the thing that he said to me was, I'm about to shut that door. Now, remember, the spirit realm is dominant to the physical realm. Everything happens in the spiritual realm before it happens in the physical realm. Yahuwah said, let there be light, and then the physical realm manifested light. So he was letting me know that in the spiritual realm, the door to the wedding feast was about to close. You know how it talked about with the 10 virgins, the 5 wise and the 5 foolish, and how the 5 foolish had the wedding door, the door to the wedding feast slammed shut in their face, and they were out there weeping and gnashing. That door to the wedding feast is what he was talking about. And he says, I'm about to close it. And he told me that the remnant will barely make it in. Now, mind you, he didn't say anything specific towards you and the remnant will barely make it in. So listen, I'm still like, let me make sure I'm part of that remnant. You know what I'm saying? But it was very specific, very specific. And I've been asking him, like, what do I need to do? Because if he's letting me know that he's about to close that door is about to shut, that means we're a lot closer than we think we are. Again, even Yahusha doesn't know the day or the hour, but our job is just to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to when the day or the hour comes. And part of that is preaching the Besorah, pointing people to Yahusha, submitting ourselves so we can be changed as well, because we don't want to be hypocrites telling people about Yahusha and we're not conforming to Yahusha. We're not submitting to Yahuwah. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope it blessed you. As usual, if you want to get in contact with me, you can reach me at replenishme@gmail.com. Much shalom and ahava. One more thing before I leave. One more thing. If you know that you have not received Ruach HaKodesh since you believed, I want you to ask Yahuwah right now for his Ruach. This is an open invitation. And mind you, this is for anybody that listens at any point in time when they listen. If you have not yet received Ruach HaKodesh, I want you to ask Yahuwah for Ruach HaKodesh right now. Okay? So, until next time, Shalom Aleichem.